Tamatha Paul.
Speaker. Well, welcome to an era of mass incarceration, which has been brought in by Minister McKee and their misguided, unimaginative approach to dealing with the very real harm that is happening in our communities. Let's be straight up about what we've got in front of us. We've got a concept of 3 strikes that we have imported from the United States of all countries, the country with the most incarcerated people in the world. That is the country that our government has chosen as an exemplar for our justice system. And where did they get that idea from? They got it from a game of baseball. A game of baseball where 3 strikes and you're out. But this is not a game. And if the government actually put some effort into basing their law and order policies on evidence rather than a game where there are winners and losers, then maybe our communities would get the safety and the peaceful way of life that they deserve. But we're playing games of people's lives, and it's not just the people that we're sentencing that suffer, it's their entire families and often their communities too. Because children of people in prison are 9 times more likely to go to prison. And now, thanks to the new young serious offenders category, they can go into prison even earlier. And that's the approach of this government to law and order. It's a game of how many prisons can we build and how many beds can we fill with poor, disabled, brown people before the public rejects this failed logic that locking people up and punishing people does not lead to the safe communities that the public deserves. And at the rate that we're heading, we are going to need a new prison every few years. The $1 billion, and it's shameful, it's unimaginative, it's a waste of money when the government could be putting that money into housing, into education, into job opportunities, livable benefits, the public health system. But no, let's build more mega prisons. Because that is the sum ambition of this government. They've scrapped prison population reduction targets. They've removed treaty provisions from the corrections bill. They have made it easier to lock up children with the young serious offender category because that is their ambition, and they think that they can just lock people up and that's going to solve the issue. Well, it won't, because it's a failure. Just like 3 strikes was a failure. And the concept of continuing to repeat failed experiments is the definition of insanity. 3 strikes was a failed experiment. It's a policy that has, according to advisors, limited evidence that it reduces serious crime. Officials weren't even able to identify any quantifiable benefits for this bill, and that's because there are none. There are no benefits from reintroducing 3 strikes. The evidence also shows that judicial discretion is better than mandatory sentences because it allows for the circumstances of each person to be taken into account. And that matters when you look at who's actually in prison. More than 90% of people in prison have a lifetime diagnosable mental health or substance abuse issue. More than 75% of people in prison have been victims of violence. I know the government loves to talk about victims of violence. How about that? That a majority of people in prisons are victims themselves. It's a false dichotomy to make it out like there's a difference. They are victims too. And around 71% of people in prison have significant literacy issues, and 1 in 3 people who have been in state residential care between 1950 and 1999 end up serving a prison sentence. Prisons should never be the only answer, yet they have become the only answer because that is the sum ambition of this government and of the minister. They choose to ignore the strong evidence about the failure of 3 strikes. They continue to restore failed policies, and until they wake up and realise it doesn't work, we will get no better outcomes in this country.